welcome to Hosta La Vista, the podcast where the shade is cool, the leaves are lush, and friendship's perennial. We are your hosts. I'm Betsy Peterson.
And I'm Mandy Olson.
Two hobbyist sisters who love this plant as much as you do.
Join us each week as we dig into all things hosta, the plant affectionately known as the friendship plant.
Welcome, listeners. Have you ever visited a garden so incredible, so expansive, that it makes you feel like you've stepped into another world? A place where every turn reveals a new shade, a fresh texture, or a perfectly placed hosta?
Our guest today is instrumental in creating just such an experience. He's part of a family legacy that's transformed acres of Illinois landscape into a true horticultural masterpiece, a place where hostas truly shine.
From the careful curation of hundreds of varieties to the stunning display gardens that inspire thousands, his work is a testament to what dedication and vision can achieve in the world of plants. He's got a unique perspective on growing, designing, and sharing the beauty of the friendship plant.
So get ready to be inspired as we welcome the co-owner of Hornbaker Gardens in Illinois, Dave Hornbaker.
Welcome, Dave.
Thank you so much, Betsy. And Mandy, thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, it is such a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Hornbaker Gardens has such a rich history as a family-owned destination. Could you tell us a little bit about how your family first started in the gardens and what inspired the initial leap into horticulture?
Both of my parents really enjoyed gardening. Especially my dad's mom enjoyed gardening. And so I think he picked that up from her. And they both, when they decided to get married and start a life together, one of their main goals was to try to find a piece of land and start a little homestead and start a family. And so they did exactly that when they moved out to Princeton. They rented a house for 2 or 3 years, and then Dad was practicing law in town. And they found this little, I want to say it was 20 acres initially, piece out in the country. It was not for sale, but Dad kind of fell in love with this specific area that is now Hornbaker Gardens. And so he approached the landowner, walked up his steps. His name was Ike Bell, knocked on the door and said, "Hi, I'm Rich Hornbaker, and this is what I'm doing. I'm trying to find a piece of land to purchase and raise a family, plant an orchard, grow some sweet corn." And they hit it off, and Ike ended up selling him a small section of that big farm. And since then, Ike has sold out of everything, and there was an opportunity to buy a number of acres later. So it's now 40 acres. The leap into horticulture, I guess the initial leap would have been the purchasing of those acres, because that's when they really started planting apple trees. And the first tree, I think, was a blue spruce in the front yard. And they were avid gardeners, but they had no idea what they were doing. And they were perfectly fine with that. They grew strawberries there for a while, raspberries. It was known as Hornsberry Farms for a number of years. And Mom had a bunch of rows of strawberries. Some of them, they were all you pick, but you couldn't just come out and pick some of them because some people within the community of Princeton would call dibs on a row. And that was, that was Patty's row over there of strawberries. And so it began as an organic berry farm. And then, as I'm fairly certain, it was just a matter of Dad growing tired of practicing law. And so that was the initial push of Hornbaker Gardens. And when they first started, the idea was, let's grow chrysanthemums and let's grow a lot of them. So I want to say it was 15,000 mums that they grew the first year. Wow. And so those 15,000 mums, they had a truck and a 15-passenger van we called the Big Red Van. And those would pull trailers. And they were homemade trailers that Dad used had a guy, Jerry, down the road that did welding, helped weld some trailers together. And so these trailers were used to deliver mums to grocery stores, hardware stores, ma and pa, small nurseries around the area. And so though that was the first 2 years of Hornbaker Gardens, and it was that third year where they started growing some other plants, invited the public out for the first time to actually purchase plants at retail. And I can remember setting up, I would have been 5 or 6 at the time, setting up a folding table and folding chairs out in the driveway, and my Aunt Carol coming out and selling plants out of the driveway. And so it was that the reaction, the positive reaction that they got from those people that came out that day for the open house, that's when the light bulb went off and they thought, maybe this is doable. Maybe we can do a retail operation. And so they dove right in head first, planted up big display gardens, which is now the Hosta ravine. And so there was a small section where they built a path through the ravine, planted a whole bunch of hostas, with the whole business model being come over here, see a mature hosta or other plant, and hopefully we have that available across the road in a half gallon or gallon container. Since then, it's just been an evolution of sorts. We grew into like dwarf conifers in the 90s. My dad got interested into woodies, and then that expanded into a full tree and shrub lineup over the years. Molly was instrumental in starting our annual program. For years, we were known as the Princeton perennial people, and that was our tagline. And we exclusively sold perennials, which at the time were not nearly as well known. Everybody knew their bedding plants and annuals, but perennials was still up and coming. And so that was our niche, the perennials, the hostas. And then I forget what year it was, but they said, hang on, wait up. Just because we're the Princeton perennial people doesn't mean we can't put up a greenhouse and have all these other fun plants. And so now we're a full scale garden center that offers a little bit of everything.
And Molly is your sister, correct?
Yes, Molly's the middle sister. My oldest sister lives down in Bloomington, but Molly has been kind of the leader since we were kids, and you could often find her behind the cash register and very business minded. And she's our CEO today. My title is creative director, for lack of a better title. And yeah, we both wear many, many hats, and we do very much work as a partnership. But when it comes to a final say on something, or, Molly is our fearless leader.
Okay. You both took over from your father, correct?
Correct. And so Dad was very much the CEO from day one. Mom was very much involved, but she was more, she was out there greeting customers, having the customer relations end of things under wraps, as well as, I would say, director of morale. She was the one to bring around the popsicles and stuff. But Dad is just he's a brilliant business mind. He didn't have the vision that Hornbaker's is today, but he certainly had a direction each year that he was really focused on. Some of it worked, some of it didn't, but he has steered the ship for many, many years. And it's only within the last maybe, 3 or 4 years that he's taken a serious step back and allowed Molly and myself to start curating, what it is we're going to be selling the next year, and dealing with the ins and outs of the daily operations and whatnot. But yeah, Dad is still very much involved. He lives out at the garden still, and I think he might be there forever. We'll see. But he really right now is enjoying retirement and leaving whenever he wants to, and sticking around when he wants to. And so oftentimes you'll see him out there helping customers, or coming up with some ideas and collaborating with us on bringing something new to life out there.
Very cool. So
Yes.
over the years, Hornbaker Gardens has grown so much. What is one particular challenge or triumph that stands out in the garden's history that you feel truly shaped what it is today?
I guess this is kind of off topic, but it felt kind of seismic in a way when we built the wedding barn. That was something that was unlike anything we had ever done before, as a family, as a business, and it was kind of during my mom's final years. She had early onset dementia, and it just there was so much gravity behind that decision to build the wedding barn, and a lot of thought, a lot of money, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into making that happen. And so that was a huge triumph. One, to get the business model up and running and getting a bank to back us. Because initially that was a very difficult. We heard a lot of no's before we heard finally a yes. There for a while, we didn't know if we were going to be able to do it or not. But yeah, things finally came together, and we were able to make it happen. It started out as kind of the idea being, let's build a pavilion to host weddings and events, and then that ballooned into what the barn is today, which is a heated and cooled facility with bathrooms and a bride's room and a groom's room and all of that. And so I know this podcast is about hostas.
That's okay.
But that was one huge part of what Hornbaker Gardens is today. And what that has allowed us as a family and a business to do is be a little more consistent. As anybody knows, as anybody within the horticultural industry knows, the weather plays a huge part in the make or break of a business. And there were so many ups and downs, some years making nothing or losing money, and some years doing great. And it was just very volatile. And by having an event business kind of working symbiotically with with our garden center, that has evened that out. And if we have a down year at the garden center, there's that buffer of having some events come in, and vice versa.
I think that's very smart. So,
Yeah.
would you say how long has the barn been there? About 10 years already?
Yes, 10 years. That was 2015.
Oh,
Yep, I was
wow.
lucky enough to propose to my now wife, Laura, that year, and we were
Aw.
able to get married up there, which was
Oh,
a
that's neat.
wonderful occasion.
Oh my gosh, that was great timing.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, what is one aspect of the gardens, or the, display gardens or the nursery that might surprise people who haven't visited before?
Well, I guess there's a lot more to it than what you initially see. A lot of people will come out, whether it is they're told about it by a friend, or they're coming off the interstate and see a tourist attraction, Hornbaker Gardens, 5 miles. They usually are sticking around for an hour or so, half hour, hour and a half, and then a lot of times I hear, I wish I had 4 hours, or I wish I had 8 hours. And so I guess if you're coming for the first time, there's just a lot to see. So if you do have the time to dedicate to an afternoon, and you can bring some food, some drinks, make a picnic out of it. Make it a half day trip rather than just an hour or two. Because there's a ton of gardens to see, and some of them are not super obvious. And we encourage everybody to explore all the grounds, all the gardens that we do have, because there's a lot to see.
So, is it on all 40 acres?
So about 15 acres are maintained.
Okay.
And then there's a lot of timber, so steep ravines and timber.
Okay.
That's great. Well, Hornbaker Gardens is truly a destination for plant enthusiasts, known for its extensive display gardens, including the famous Hosta Ravine. How did the ravine come about?
So the Hosta Ravine was the very first display garden that my parents decided to install. And my mom's brother, Uncle Bob, and her dad, Grandpa Earl, and my dad all put the path down through the ravine by using railroad ties and crushed stone and some blue flagstone. And so those initial steps in that initial path, they installed that first, and then they started planting hostas. Other shade perennials like heuchera and polygonatum, lamium, wood poppies, bluebells, helleborus. There's plenty of other perennials in there, but hostas, that was the one thing that really grabbed my parents' attention the most early on. They just saw an opportunity to amass a collection, and people love to collect. And so that was the idea, is to have this wonderful collection of primarily hostas in this kind of picturesque ravine. And the whole idea, they kind of went all in, like, let's build this really nice path. Let's put this really nice gazebo there, and let's plant some hostas. And that's the business model. They see a mature plant over here, and hopefully across the road, we have grown enough that we can have that available in a 1-gallon pot.
That's great. Or are you adding to it or changing it regularly?
Yeah, and we kind of just kept inching into the ravine as the years went on. With, I want to say it was like the mid 90s that they made a significant addition to that Hosta ravine by going down into the ravine and actually building a dam. And so that small dam at the bottom of the ravine collects all the water from 3 springs coming out of the hillside as you move up through the Hosta ravine. And so these 3 really wet, soppy areas that were once thought of as just kind of an area to lose your sandal or boot when you're walking through it, it was just kind of a nuisance down there, became a perfect spot to, one, source the water from for a pond and then a stream by adding in a pump, and 2, planting things like ligularia and astilbe and hosta. I mean, hosta, that is one thing that not a lot of people realize, is that hostas, they will grow hydroponically. And they grow extremely well if they have running water moving next to them.
Wow.
That's interesting. How many hostas do you think are in the Hosta ravine?
That's a great question. And I feel like my answer always changes, but we offer for sale over 400 varieties, and that's been fairly consistent over the years. It probably ballooned up to 500 plus at one time. But I would say there's probably, there's hundreds. I just don't know where the number lands.
Yeah.
So my guess would be 350, 400.
Really? Okay. Wow.
And
That's
some of those
great.
we're not carrying this year because we don't have availability until next year.
Yeah.
But that's my best guess right now. I will have a better answer for you here in the coming weeks, because another new thing that we're working on is cataloging right now it's just trees, but eventually I'd like to get the hostas and shrubs and everything in there as well. But we're using ArcGIS to map out all of the trees on the farm and their information that goes along with them, so that here in the near future, our customers will be able to take a QR code and scan it with their phone, and that'll kind of take them to a virtual tour, if you will.
That's great.
To show people, like, where are the tulip trees on the farm? Where are the red maples? How old are those? When were they planted? So that kind of technology, we're starting with the trees, like I said, but our hope is to eventually have it to the point where, okay, where is Wind Beneath My Wings? Where are all the Junes, Hosta Junes, which is our most popular Hosta this year? And Bloodline, where's the Bloodline? So I'm hoping that can be a wonderful tool for our customers and our employees alike.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
And listeners, if you haven't been to the Hornbaker's website, please take a minute and go check it out. It's really phenomenal. It's very interactive, very responsive website with lots of photos and imagery. The only other place I've seen what you're talking about with the GPS almost location points, the Minnesota Arboretum. Their website has a spot where each little plant has a dot, and if
Yeah.
you hover over the dot, it'll say, Hosta Liberty donated
Yes.
by somebody
Yeah.
in the year 19, whatever.
Wow.
So before I even went out to the landscape arboretum, I already had an idea of where I wanted to go, and it sounds to me like, you know, I have not yet been to Hornbakers, but from everybody I've talked to, like
Yeah.
it is equal to
Yeah.
any arboretum anywhere. And I think that's a great, thing to add to your website. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, we're excited about that.
Can you tell us about some of the other display areas in the gardens?
Sure. The main shady beds would be what we consider the Hosta ravine, and then there are plenty of trees throughout the rest of the beds that offer some shade, but a lot of those other display beds will be a lot more sun. And so we usually say if you're looking for shady perennials, head to the Hosta Ravine. If you're
Mhm.
looking for sunny, head across the road from the checkout, which that's Dad's front yard extended up the hill. And so there's about 150 feet of stream coming down through that hillside and ending up in a pond in Dad's front yard. And so on either side of the stream, you're going to see a lot of flowering perennials that are pretty current. We've revamped that over these last few years that we didn't have in the gardens, and we got rid of a lot of older varieties that just either weren't selling or a new and improved one has come along that has obviously replaced it. So the front yard is a great spot for water garden enthusiasts and to check out those sunny perennials. And then the wedding barn, I would encourage anybody out here that is visiting on a day when there's not a wedding, go ahead and peruse those gardens up by the barn because they're gorgeous. There's a lot of really neat gardens, and a lot of people feel like that's off limits, but it's just during those events that we ask that people um, respect the privacy of the people renting.
Sure.
But the other main display gardens are included in what we call the parkway. And the parkway is a strip of lawn that runs about 600 feet from one end to the other with gardens on either side. And so that's got a mix of shady and sun. But one of the main events at Hornbaker Gardens is the artisan market every year,
Mm.
and so that's held on the third Saturday in September, and this will be our 12th annual
Hmm.
artisan market this year. And there are our office manager Marcy first spearheaded this 12 years ago and invited some incredible artists from around the Midwest to set up a tent in the lawn and then let people. She promoted it really well, and so we had about 30 artists that first year setting up their tents. And these artists, I mean, the mediums included painting and woodworking and sculpting, pottery, photography, you name it. I think we've had it out there as far as fine arts. But that whole parkway becomes a venue for this outdoor event. And we always keep our fingers crossed that it won't rain. But that parkway, I mean, yes, it's great to see those beds and everything. But it seems like the parkway has become like it should be called the artisan market venue,
Yeah.
because it just that artisan market has become such a beloved event for many many people. We usually
Great.
see about 3,000 people in one day
Oh, wow.
for that event.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh. Wow.
Goodness.
So definitely check out the parkway. That is one area. That's one display bed that often gets missed because they go see the ravine,
Hmm.
they go see the sunny beds, and then they don't take the time to walk all the way back where 2 years ago we planted about 150 new perennials, and they're all starting to mature and look really good. So
Oh, that's
the
great.
Parkway is definitely something to check out and take your time to stroll through.
Okay,
Very
great.
cool. Well, your hosta selection is immense. What is your philosophy when curating such a vast collection?
Well, this is where it would be helpful to have Molly involved in this
Oh,
podcast because she does. So, my area of expertise is trees and shrubs, and Molly's handles a lot of the buying for perennials, annuals, garden decor,
okay.
etc. But what I will say is that I'm becoming more and more interested in hostas. You'd think I'd be a hosta nut at this point. I just went to my first convention and I absolutely loved it. Was a wonderful experience and I met a lot of really wonderful people. And that in turn got me more excited about hostas than I've ever been. And so now I'm starting to like peek over Molly's shoulder, when she's doing those orders, like, oh, well, what about this one? Or how about you double that number? Or, so I don't know
Sure.
if that those opinions are wanted or not, but I'm giving them. And yeah, the philosophy behind it, I'm pretty sure just trying to get some of those newer ones well in advance of their release. And that can be tricky sometimes. People like we have always prided ourselves on growing our own field grown hostas.
Mhm.
And we still continue to do that. We used to have iris, we used to have a field of iris, 500 varieties and
Oh,
500 or 600 varieties of daylilies. And when those fields were in bloom, they were incredible. But the labor that went into those fields and what came out of them as far as income, it was fairly obvious that something had to give.
hmm.
Whereas hostas, even if the labor going into those fields is such that, like, business wise, it would make sense to maybe do away with them and just start purchasing them through tissue culture and supplying them elsewhere, we'd still probably do it because it's kind of just part of the whole atmosphere. And a lot of these hostas are really hard to come by, and we just can't find them anywhere. And when you do find them, you don't have the quantity that you want. And so we still dig and divide and grow a majority of our own hostas.
Very cool.
But yeah, we have been working with Bob Solberg. He does, he'll help him and he and Mark Zillis help get some tissue cultures when we're not able to keep up with our numbers, or yeah, they'll tell us that does not tissue culture well, and you're barking up the wrong tree, and so we'll adjust accordingly. But
Nice.
that whole world of hybridizing, and it's exciting, and I do geek out and I really enjoy talking about it with the hybridizers. But as far as us, I mean, picking up an occasional sport that looks a little different than the rest is about, as far as we've gotten, as far as
Yeah.
bringing new varieties to market.
Sure.
Beyond the plants, Hornbaker Gardens also hosts various events. You recently had Bob Solberg in for an event. Can you tell us about it?
Yes, we've had Bob out there a number of times now, and every time he's a wealth of knowledge. He is one of the Hosta gurus. If all he knows all things Hosta, it seems like.
Mhm.
He has brought some pretty incredible varieties to market over the years. One thing I'm always amazed with is when his presentations include the process of bringing a new hybrid to market and how much observation goes into that and how many years go into that. Not a lot of people know that it takes 7 or 8 years to go from across all the way to bringing it to market.
Yeah.
So he's always I always appreciate his humor. He's got this wonderful dry humor, and we always appreciate what he brings to the table as far as a presentation. Obviously, the hostas that he brings to the table are fantastic.
Sure. Did you have a good turnout on Sunday when he came?
We did, yeah. I want to say 100 plus,
Good.
and I'm pulling that out of my butt. Uh, Molly would know the exact number, but I was down there waiting on people down at the garden center, and it was a really good crowd and a lot of familiar faces because, like I said, I just attended my first Hosta convention. Got to meet a lot of people there, and some of those had made the trip to see Bob speak.
Sure. The day before, he was in Iowa at Josh
In
Spieth's.
the country?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I drove down for that. It's about 3.5 hour drive, but
Yeah.
first time I'd ever done anything like that. And
Oh, good.
got
I'm
to
glad
meet Bob, and yeah, it
were
was
able to make
really
it.
fun. It was really a good event. So I found out he was heading to you the very next day. So I thought, oh, I got to ask him about it when we talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how do you know each other?
Oh, we're sisters.
Oh, okay. Well, then there you go. Missed that memo.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's okay. We in one of our first episodes, we kind of talked a little bit about, how we got started, and Mandy actually got me hooked. And so Mandy, you're on how many acres?
5 acres. Yeah.
5 acres, yeah, and just a ton of hostas. And then I came down to visit, and she's showing me around, and I thought, holy cow, this is amazing. I didn't know this many hostas existed. And up in Minnesota, everybody has the green one and the green and white one. And I thought, well, gosh, there's all these other varieties I don't even know about. So then I started looking around, and it doesn't take long before you get bit by the bug.
It's the truth.
And then the podcast came about because I had come down in May, and Mandy's in, what are you, 7A, and I'm 4B for growing zone. And so her plants were already open and flourishing and doing great, and mine were still these little fingerlings sticking up out of the ground. I was out weeding, and I thought, well, I'll just put on a podcast and listen, and there wasn't one. So I said, hey, how do you feel about starting a podcast all about hostas? And that was
what a brilliant idea. Seriously. Yeah, and I feel like Dad was always worried that, he was wondering when that trend would trail off. Kind of like what happened with iris and daylilies, and he has been wondering. But then 2020 hit, and it just supercharged people's interests.
Did it? Okay, good.
In all things plants, and hostas included, or at least that's how it feels. And yeah, I don't see it going away. Yeah, people are interested and love to geek out on it. And
do you think that had anything to do with the pandemic, or was there something else that happened that year that caused people to all of a sudden
being stuck at home? I'm assuming if you get stuck at home, you got to do something.
Exactly. Yeah. And so a lot of garden centers had the best year. I'd say most garden centers had the best year they had ever had. Some of them reporting 5 times the revenue that they were making in 2019. It was kind of unique for us because we knew the event business had to close for at least the time being. It was a race to try to figure out how to operate online and curb pickup service and stuff like that. But we didn't go all in like a lot of other nurseries did. We did not open our doors for a very long time, even though most of our facility is outdoors. We still, given the circumstances, we were uncomfortable moving forward and opening up full scale until I'd say it was like early to mid-June. And by that time, the spring craze was kind of over. We still had a great year from mid-June on. And we kept social distancing, asking people to, stay 6 feet apart from one another. And so we managed to operate through the rest of that year. But within, between April 1st and mid-June, I mean, that's when people, if you had a plant for sale, it was bought. And it didn't matter if the plant was half dead because that was the demand. People just wanted plants. They were home. They were stuck at home. And what do you do when you're stuck at home?
Mhm.
There's only so much to do inside.
Yep.
And so gardening became
Yep.
the
Well,
uh, the place to be for a lot of people.
for me, it was gardening and raising chickens. I
Oh,
grew,
that's
I,
fantastic.
I hatched out probably 35 chickens. I don't know why. I just did because I don't know what else to do. So I had tons of chickens.
A lot of people probably
Oh,
say the same thing about hostas. I don't know
probably.
why, but I just went and bought 30 different kinds of hostas. And
I
now
know.
here I am.
I got caught in the sourdough bread craze. That was the other one. Everybody's making their own starter and sitting staring at the bubbles in a jar on their counter. And
Uh,
well, I'm actually really glad
Great.
to hear that because I was not one that was running out buying plants. I was about a year and a half later, but
yeah,
I think that's really neat because so
yeah,
many, well, if you look at like the number of hosses that were registered each year, after about 2020, the registrations just went up. I guess our hybridizers were like, okay, well, I'm stuck at home. I might as well make some neat crosses. And I think we're
yeah.
now 5 years later, we're starting to see some of those hit the market.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Yeah, for tissue culture and whatnot. So there definitely were some benefits to the pandemic that probably nobody foresaw as they were happening. But yeah, well, good. Well,
Plenty of pitfalls, but yes.
yes, take the good with
Let's
the
let's
bad.
talk about the silver lining. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Well, in June of this year, you had a large contingent of the American Hosta Society convention goers load a bus and come out to Hornbakers. It was definitely a true highlight for so many of the attendees. What are your thoughts on that big day, and what were some of the comments you heard?
It was certainly a highlight for us. I mean, say the highlight of the year for us as a family and as a dad was pretty integral in the initial forming of the American Hosta Society, and he knew a lot of those original members, but just he just wasn't nearly as involved. So it was one a great reunion of sorts, especially for Dad and his colleagues. But having that many Hosta enthusiasts descend upon a place known for their hostas, I mean, it's a recipe for really wonderful conversations. And luckily, the weather worked out. And we put a lot of work into making sure those gardens were looking the best they've ever looked. And so,
Mhm.
Dad, these last few years, he's still pretty active, but those weeks leading up to that event, uh, every single day, Dad was out there moving a hosta or instructing me to get that thing out of there because it's just looked like crap for the last 5 years. And it was just like all these decisions got made within a number of weeks, just in preparation for that event, and it really paid off. The attendees really appreciated the gardens, and we really appreciated the conversations and the friendships that were sparked during that one night event.
That's very cool. Very cool. Well, our next segment is called Finish the Rhyme. It's time for a little bit of fun. What we'll do is we'll give you a rhyme and you try to finish it with the name of the hosta. Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay, here's the first one. Its bold green center, seen from afar, and bright gold edge, a shining color bar. A proud Texas beauty, raising the garden's bar. This remarkable hosta is.
Lone Star.
Yep, you got it.
Yay. Good job.
Yes.
Yay.
I cheated. I cheated.
I-
Molly helped me out with that one.
Oh, did she?
She did.
It's okay.
Well,
I
good
don't
job,
know them
Molly.
sometimes either. Yeah. Okay. Okay, Dave, here's another one, but this one's a little trickier. All
Okay.
right. It's tiny ripples, a subtle sway. The Hosta guru knows its special way. A petite treasure, come what may. The charming Hosta.
Buttonwood Bay.
Yay.
You got it.
You
Yes.
got it. Good job.
I picked two that you had for sale on your website.
Well, thank you for doing that because you really could have tripped me up there had you wanted to.
And we wanted to. We don't want to.
Given Hornbaker Gardens' location in Illinois, what are some of the particular challenges or unique considerations for growing hostas successfully in the Midwest climate?
The Midwest climate does have those temperature swings, and not only seasonally from season to season, but from week to week. And it seems like those swings are just becoming more dramatic as time moves on. And the freeze thaw of our Midwest winters really can do a number on not just hostas, but trees, shrubs, any living plant. But what I have noticed is that miniature hostas, especially, and the smaller hostas with a shallow root system, will heave up out of the ground. And so it's a complaint I hear a lot is, I keep planting these minis because I think they're cute and I just love them. I'm not having any good luck. And so what I usually tell people is go out there and investigate in the spring and see which ones have heaved. And it's a very simple fix. You're just kind of settling them down in there and kind of replanting them if they've heaved a lot. And just that little bit of effort can go a long way in one, keeping them alive and allowing them to thrive.
Okay.
So how do you know if it's heaved? Do you see more of the root system?
You can actually see it. It's kind of that whole root system has heaved up, and sometimes, yes, you can see the crown of the plant with the roots starting to come off of it. And so that's a telltale sign if you're seeing the actual roots up out of the ground. And if you are, they're likely starting to turn a little green on the outskirts, and it can survive just fine like that if you were to water it all the time. But if you don't kind of replant that and push it back down into the soil, it can dry out in a hurry, and then either die on you or your hosta is half the size as it was the previous year.
Yeah.
So that is one thing that you can do. Another thing you can do is offer some sort of stability next to it by placing like a decent little boulder next to it and tucking the hosta right up next to that boulder, having something to help anchor it.
Okay. Almost like a weather block or a weather shield of some kind to protect it a little bit. Okay.
Yep. One, the physical weight and mechanics of it will help. And two, I think just buffering the temperature a little bit can help.
Okay.
Well, we've talked about weather extremes a bit, but do you have any specific tips for dealing with pests or soil conditions found here?
Well, voles continues to be one of the biggest challenges that we have as far as pests with hostas. Slugs would probably be the most well-known. I'm guessing if you were doing Family Feud with some hosta categories, slugs would be at the top of the list. But voles, I think, should either be at the top or close second. They do so much damage before you even know what's happening. Whereas a slug, you can see the damage as it happens. Voles, you don't know it until all of a sudden there's a severe decline. Or a slight decline, and then you go to investigate and you realize, like, if I were to do nothing, then this thing might die on me because it hardly has any roots left. So both in the pots and in the gardens, we do have some years worse than others, all sorts of damages to the roots, and sometimes even the crown of the plant is eaten whole. So it must be super nutritious and tasty to a bull because they really go after it. And so as far as the solution, cats definitely help. And if you're going to go with a cat, you might not want, the $1,500 Persian Siamese one. Here's my recommendation. You go find a farmer Ask if he's got any barn cats. And if he's got a litter of kittens, then likely they will be of the pedigree that will find some mice and voles and be your guards.
Well, we have a vole exterminator. His name is Elvis.
Elvis.
We have a
hero.
He's perfect. He's a wonderful cat. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Well, from your extensive experience cultivating thousands of hostas, what's one practical, perhaps lesser known piece of advice that you'd offer to both novice and seasoned gardeners for ensuring their hostas truly thrive?
I'll repeat what Bob really hammers home when Bob Solberg speaks. He talks a lot about fertilizer. And that is, that goes for most things, really. Like, how the heck did you get that shrub to grow so big? Well, I watered it and I fertilized it, is often the answer. And so the same goes for hostas. They are a water-loving plant. Like I mentioned earlier, they will grow hydroponically right out of the gravel in our ponds. Anytime I'm planting them in the pond or stream, I'm taking all the soil off and planting the roots right into there. So it's a water-loving plant. Don't let them go dry. And fertilizer, a 10-10 or 12-12, or some Milorganite. A lot of people will use Milorganite because the deer seem to not like the smell of Milorganite. And I have had some people say Milorganite doesn't do anything. There are some deer populations that, just don't respond to anything, it seems like. They just, they're that hungry. But yeah, the fertilizer, the water, and sunlight, a lot of people, that's another thing. A lot of people think of hostas as shade loving plants, and they are shade tolerant plants. I would say that they're actually sun loving plants. They thrive. We grow all of our hostas in full sun until early July on our propagation beds. And we didn't learn that until, a few years ago. We realized, like, why are we putting the shade cloth up on our prop beds the same time we're putting them up down on our retail benches? Because they grow really well as long as they have the moisture. And that's a big if, but if they have the right moisture, especially early in the season, they do like sunlight. So if something isn't growing well, a lot of times it's because the tree that is shading the area has become that much more dense, and competing with the light. So light, water, fertilizer, but that the biggest one being fertilizer. It just makes all the difference in the world.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, Dave. Now it's time for our rapid fire segment called This or That. We'll give you 2 hosta-related choices, and you just tell us the first one that comes to mind. No overthinking. Ready?
Okay.
Okay, here we go. The grand sweeping impact of a mass planting in the display garden, or the detailed artistry of a meticulously curated individual specimen?
Mass. I'm a mass kind of guy. Yeah.
Okay.
And actually, that is one thing that, hostas aren't really considered a ground cover very often, but I am finding that a lot of these smaller ones, one of my favorites recently is Wiggles and Squiggles. One, it's fun to say, and 2, it's just a really good grower and puts on size and hurry. And so popping in a whole bunch of like 2 or 3 eye divisions over an area can create this wonderful, lush ground cover. And so that's one thing that usually people don't think of hostas as a ground cover, but they, especially the smaller ones, in mass, look great.
Yeah. Cool. All right. The challenge of introducing a brand new cutting edge hosta hybrid to the market, or the satisfaction of cultivating and promoting a timeless classic that stands the test of time.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for the new ones. I and some of them do end up being duds.
Yeah.
Some plants come to market and they market them heavily, and then but it's just really exciting to see what all these hybridizers are doing, and the latest and the greatest are fun to see
Right.
each spring.
Yeah.
All right. The intricate process of digging and preparing hostas for shipping, or the bustling energy of a busy Saturday with customers picking their own plants at the nursery.
The bustling Saturday, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the vibe, the whole feel to a day like that. It's great, and that's one of my favorite things to do out here at the gardens is to chat with people, whether it's a busy day or a slow day. Um, yeah, it's our customers. That's one of the best parts of the job out here.
Very cool.
Cool. All right. Expanding the Arboretum and Botanical Garden collections for long-term education and display.
That
Or,
one.
okay, that one.
I don't know what the second one is, but it'd be
Yeah.
hard to beat that one.
Okay.
I love
All
it.
right. All right. Visitors coming from far away or local Princeton residents?
God, that's one of the more difficult ones, and I know I'm not supposed to think about it too much. So my initial thought is somebody from far away. It
Yeah.
is fun. This spring, this couple drove from Minnesota just to see our gardens after hearing about it on a PBS station,
Really? Wow.
and that is pretty special to have somebody do that. But
That is.
I will say it's really, really nice because we have become known as a destination garden center. And so a lot of locals, either they're not really into hostas or, they have their other greenhouses that they go to. And we kind of get missed because we get thought of, I think, as that destination. And we sometimes get a bad rap for high prices, but really we're right in line, with a lot of these others. Um, so it is really nice when you do have a local come out, especially when it's a local that hasn't spent a lot of time out there, and I'm able to kind of introduce them to all that is Hornbaker Gardens.
Cool.
That's great.
All right, last one. The Hosta Ravine or the barn?
Ravine.
Okay.
As fun as the barn is, and there's been some great parties, and the most important day of my life was held up there. Being married up there. The Hosta Ravine, that is my place of peace. If I'm having a bad day, there's something about the running water, the lush, hillside of hostas and ferns, and you are immersed down in the bottom of this ravine where really nobody else can see you from the rest of the farm. And so you do feel like you are fully immersed in nature when you're down there, both with the sights, the sounds, the smells, and it's hard to beat.
Well, looking ahead, are there any particularly exciting new hosta introductions or rare finds that you're currently cultivating or have your eye on that you're eager to offer to your collectors in the near future?
I'm probably going to make Bob Solberg shake his head if he hears this, but Red Ninja
Oh,
is something. Have you heard of Red Ninja?
Yeah.
we hear it. We hear it a lot on here.
Okay, well
Yeah.
then I'm not the only one.
Nope.
It just popped up on my social media one day, and I thought, "Holy cow, that's pretty incredible! Is that AI just like the rest of them?"
Uh-huh.
And so after doing some research and talking to Bob about it, it is real and it is coming to market. It sounds like he kind of, when I asked him about it on Sunday, he just kind of, brushed it off like, it fades, it doesn't tissue culture well. But that hasn't stopped me from kind of geeking out.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what you guys know about Red Ninja, because this is fairly new to me.
Well, who
well, let's
talked
see.
about it, Betsy?
Well, it first popped up when we were talking to Ben Matthews.
Oh,
He
yeah.
is he lives in the UK, over in Worcestershire, and he holds a national collection of hostas, and he was the first one to mention it.
Yeah.
And then I've seen it pop up on a few Facebook groups. And then, gosh, who was our other guest? Was it David Bowe that brought it up?
Yeah,
I'm trying to
maybe.
remember who it
Yeah.
was that brought it up. But as far as I know, it was first introduced over in Denmark, I think, by a hybridizer over there. And he registered himself as Ninja something, but that's not
Uh,
obviously not his that's not his whole name.
yeah.
But and I think that they're in the process of trying to tissue culture it, and everything I've seen has said coming in 26 or 27. So I
Okay.
know they're giving it a lot of time to grow
Yeah.
and do its thing, but um, I don't know. Now you know everything I know.
Yeah.
Well, we all have a lot to learn.
Yeah.
We do. We do.
And
It is.
I wish them the best.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what comes of all these experiments that these hybridizers are doing.
Yeah. Well, Dave, this has been such an incredible conversation, offering such a wonderful glimpse into Hornbaker Gardens and your expertise. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, and
Yeah,
and it's a pleasure meeting you too.
it was. And before we say goodbye, do you have any final thoughts or a message you'd like to share with our amazing Hosta La Vista listeners?
I guess it seems to be more and more all about the people and less about the plants.
Mhm.
Yes, we love to geek out on the plants, but like I was saying earlier, the Hosta community and the plant community, y'all are great people, and we really, really love talking plants with you guys.
Yeah.
And Hosta being the friendship plant, I would just encourage others to share more their knowledge and their actual plants. They divide so easily. It's one of the reasons my parents got into it to begin with, and it's really fun to dig in, pull off a chunk, and give it to somebody. That is one of my favorite things to do out here. Is I shouldn't advertise this because everybody's going to ask me to dig a chunk of my hosta out of my garden. But it is truly the friendship plant because of that, the ability to share a division. And so that's what I would encourage everybody to do.
Awesome.
Join us next week when we chat with David Teeger. And to all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Hosta La Vista. You can follow us and send your Hosta questions or even your own Hosta rhymes to hostalavistapodcast@gmail.com. Find us and hit follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. And make sure you like our Facebook page. Until next time, thanks for listening and
Hasta la vista, baby. Thank you, guys. Really pleasure meeting you.